All right, let's talk 49ers Seahawks on this short week. It's already Tuesday, which means that it might as well be Friday, right? Because we normally have the games on Sunday, but since the game is on Thursday, everything is expedited. So, close the book on 49ers Bucks really quickly yesterday, and now we move on to see if the 49ers will be able to win the NFC West on Seattle's turf once again. Last time they played with a chance to clinch the NFC West in Seattle, the 49ers did it by about this much. Dre Greenlaw made the stop on Jacob Hollister. Total mayhem erupted up there in the Pacific Northwest on the 49ers sideline, at least. I mean, I have such crazy memories watching that from the press box. A lot of confusion because it was on the other side of the field. I thought initially that Hollister didn't get it, but obviously Seattle's crowd disagreed. The 49ers sideline thought Hollister didn't get it. Everybody spilled out onto the field. For a second, there was a thought that Jimmy Ward had actually picked up a fumble from Jacob Hollister, and he ran it all the way back 100 yards for the touchdown, and the 49ers bench cleared and was celebrating. And John Lynch realized this is not good. We can't have a personal foul penalty right now. Too much is undetermined. So John Lynch himself, in a big peak coat because it was cold in Seattle on that December night, ran out onto the field, and he was clearing guys off the field. He's like, no, get back, calm down. The review took like 5 to 10 minutes. It was crazy. And finally, the 49ers were declared, they weren't declared victors by the review. They still had to run the quarterback sneak with Jimmy Garoppolo, but they were declared winners of the review. And then the quarterback sneak happened. Jimmy threw the ball into the crowd. A 49ers fan caught it. The rest was history. Number one seed for the 49ers allowed them to go all the way to the Super Bowl, really paved the way for that playoff run. The crazy thing about that game back in 2019 was that Marshawn Lynch re-signed with the Seahawks, essentially came out of retirement just to play in that game and then in the playoffs for Seattle that year. And I think it was hubris, whatever you want to call it. There was nostalgia. Pete Carroll wanted Marshawn to score the winning touchdown at the end of the game when Russell Wilson was driving the offense down the field. And Marshawn hadn't been with the team, so there was miscommunication about his role. And the big penalty that occurred to really tilt the scales in the 49ers' favor, at least take them off the ropes, was a delay of game where Seattle didn't realize the play clock was running down and they're still in the huddle. And the delay of game pushed them back 5 yards from the 1 to the 6. That meant that Marshawn obviously couldn't run the ball in, and it set the table for Dre Greenlaw's legendary tackle. And I think that the delay of game happened because they needed to get Marshawn Lynch into the game, and he trotted in late, and nobody knew where he was. I mean, the whole miscommunication chain effect ended up doing the Seahawks in. And maybe they shouldn't have been as insistent on Marshawn Lynch scoring a touchdown there for Seattle vanity purposes against the 49ers. But he did score one earlier in that game, and that place did go nuts. I mean, it was a hell of an atmosphere that night in Seattle. And the 49ers prevailed. They got that Seattle monkey off their backs. That was definitely one that was hanging over their heads for a long time. They did something that the Harbaugh teams were not able to do, and that is clinch the division in Seattle, right? Beat the Seattle Seahawks. The 2011 Harbaugh team, I get it. They did win in Seattle, but that was before the Seahawks turned into the monster that they were with the Legion of Boom in that decade. 2012 was the real emergence of that Seattle team. That's when Russell Wilson obviously came aboard. 2013 was the Seattle Super Bowl team. And those were, I mean, there was a house of horrors for the 49ers, right? Between regular season losses and the NFC title game loss at the end of that 2013 season. So that 2019 game meant a whole hell of a lot to the 49ers. Anyway, 49ers have a chance to clinch in Seattle again. New cast of characters this time. Pete Carroll still on the opposing sideline, so he's really a constant. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have been constants for the 49ers, but it'll be somebody new under center for the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo hurt. Probably Brock Purdy, but I'm going to be out at practice at Levi Stadium later today to have a look at the 49ers injury situation. And of course, there's going to be plenty of content coming in to help us evaluate what the deal will be. Purdy listed as day-to-day right now with an oblique and a rib injury. But let's talk about this matchup. The 49ers just really skunked the Seahawks in week 2. The only Seattle score was a field goal block returned for a touchdown. So the 49ers defense effectively pitched a shutout. And it's funny because Geno Smith, the Seahawks quarterback, turned around and delivered several really good games right after that terrible one against the 49ers. Geno has since regressed from his really hot middle of the season, or I guess middle first third of the season. Let's put it that way. And there are some rumblings now in Seattle. They're not happy with how Geno Smith is playing. Obviously, the loss to Carolina wasn't good for the Seahawks, and it helped put the 49ers in position to clinch. But what's interesting to me is when we look at this right here, we can see the effectiveness of Geno Smith on a week-to-week basis based on EPA per play. Obviously, higher up on this table is better. It represents a better performance, and lower represents a worse performance. And as you could see, the 49ers defense did a number on him. The 49ers defense made sure that Geno Smith saw his worst game of the season. So now that we have a larger sample, we can see that this 49ers defense is special. He opened up hot against the Broncos, did a lot better against the Falcons in week 3. Awesome against the Lions, who don't play defense at all. Good against the Saints. And then since then, it's been middling to slightly good. He saw a game against the Buccaneers, a game against the Raiders, and a game against the Rams, which was above average. This is a percentile chart in EPA per play. But the 49ers definitely have been the most problematic defense for Geno Smith. And, I mean, we saw him keep Seattle's offense out of the end zone. We saw the pass rush really, really overwhelmed Seattle's offensive line. I don't think the tackles are particularly good. Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas, they're definitely not good enough to block Nick Bosa, who had 2 sacks in week 2. But there are some interesting performance splits even outside of the 49ers' dominance of Geno Smith in week 2. Kevin Cole here used to work for PFF. I guess he took the PFF out of his handle, but Kevin Cole points out that weeks 1 through 4, and this is including the 49ers loss, Geno Smith was 5th in EPA per play. Weeks 5 to 14, so that is after the Saints game, Geno Smith has been 18th in EPA per play. So, I mean, I think Geno would have been number 1 or number 2 in weeks 1 through 4 if the 49ers hadn't done this number on him right here. But in general, we have seen a regression from Geno Smith. We haven't seen these extremely explosive games that we saw at the start of the season. But to me, it's a bit irrelevant to the 49ers that he had explosive games at the start of the season, because even despite that explosiveness, the 49ers dragged him down here. So it's a really good matchup for the 49ers defense based on the prior matchup between these two teams in week 2. The Seahawks, they didn't have Kenneth Walker III, their best running back, against the Carolina Panthers in that upset loss on Sunday because he had an ankle injury. Walker was in the practice estimation report that's required by the NFL for Monday, was listed as a limited participant, and he was a game-time decision on Sunday against Carolina. So I would expect the Seahawks to have Kenneth Walker back. That should give them a boost because we all know that Pete Carroll does like to at least have that threat of a run game in there, right? He's an old school coach, and it has been important. Whoever's playing running back for the Seahawks has been important over the years. Obviously, they did try to sign Marshawn Lynch before they played the 49ers in 2019. This Seattle team still has DK Metcalf. He's big, strong. He's a star receiver. The 49ers, though, don't have Emmanuel Moseley anymore. And that makes me sad because Emmanuel Moseley really, I thought, came into his own through matchups against DK Metcalf. I mean, Moseley always balled out against this guy. He covered the slant really well to DK Metcalf, which isn't easy to do because DK is such a big body. But Moseley would find a way to position himself, get his arm in there, knock the ball away. Gave up only 1 catch to DK Metcalf in week 2. Metcalf had 4 total catches for 35 yards against the 49ers. So that was obviously a good job for the secondary. It's not as much, 49ers can't cover DK without Emmanuel Moseley, but it's just like, oh man, that's a matchup that I really enjoyed watching. Emmanuel Moseley, who came into the league as an undrafted free agent, who, everybody said was a little too skinny, not physically strong enough to do it at the NFL level. You saw the work that he put in over his time in the NFL in the weight room to get bigger, to get stronger, to play bigger, to play stronger. And I thought that he really consummated that work. He arrived at the NFL level with his coverage work against DK Metcalf. So unfortunately, we won't see that. But Deommodore Lenoir is growing up too for the 49ers right now. Obviously, Charvarius Ward is a star. He's a top 10 cornerback in this league. And Jimmy Ward is playing high level football. I know that you won't see much Jimmy Ward against DK Metcalf, although they jawed at each other quite a bit back in 2020 when Ward was playing safety. But this Seattle team also has Tyler Lockett, right? And that, we always talked about the K'Wan Williams, Tyler Lockett matchup back in those great 2019 games. Well, Jimmy Ward, this is the final boss for him as far as slot receiver coverage, right? Jimmy Ward has come a long way adapting to his new position. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady, who loves working on the slot, just mercilessly went after Jimmy Ward. And the good news for Jimmy is he didn't need mercy. 17 targets, 3.3 yards per target for Tom Brady against Jimmy Ward in the slot. And Jimmy also had the top run defense grade, which is, huge against a team like Seattle. It's going to be trying to also run the football. I mean, Jimmy has a defensive lineman's toughness and a cornerback's body. And he is the ideal player in a game like this. I mean, he didn't play against Seattle in week 2. He was still on IR back then. So it's exciting for the 49ers in a game that features Lockett on the other side, that they have Jimmy Ward playing as well as he is. And it's a good thing he didn't listen to a bunch of trolls online who didn't want him playing nickel cornerback for absolutely no good reason. 49ers were getting good safety play. Jimmy came off of IR. He's your best cover guy. He's played a nickel corner position before because the 49ers, especially under Robert Saleh, would match that free safety up with the slot receiver. It was something they really used and maybe even devised to face Cooper Kupp back in 2019. So it made too much sense to not put Jimmy Ward in that slot corner position. And it's a good thing that the 49ers did, because their defense is now benefiting from the experience that he has accrued over the course of the year. And they're rounding in the form. I don't think we've seen the best of this 49ers defense yet. And that's saying something. They seem to be getting better week to week. Other side of the ball, talking about coverage, this is, we're going to shift to Brock Purdy now. Obviously Purdy not 100% to play right now, but I do think he will play. We're going to find out more at practice on this Tuesday night. But Seattle, they've grown up a little bit on the back end. Still not a good defense by any stretch of the imagination. It's gotten better over the course of the season, but it also has, I think, taken a step back. It's like a 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps forward, 1 step back kind of situation. And recently we saw the performance against Carolina wasn't all too great, but Tariq Woolen, one of their rookie corners, has 6 interceptions this year. That's no joke. So Brock Purdy is going to have to be careful with how he's delivering the ball downfield. He's going to have to be careful with his eyes. Obviously, for Brock Purdy, this is going to be a new challenge. How is he going to face road noise? And how is he going to face a team that probably drops back in the coverage a little bit more often? Pete Carroll's not a big blitzer, right? Todd Bowles, big blitzer last week. Pete Carroll, not a big blitzer. So, the interception that Purdy threw that was nullified by the holding penalty came on a drop, a zone drop in the coverage for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We know that Seattle under Pete Carroll is going to play a lot of zone. He's the original cover 3 guy, developed it with Monty Kiffin back in the day, speaking of Tampa Bay. But Pete is definitely going to find old school ways to challenge Brock Purdy in this game. And one of those ways will be letting his edge rushers do the work. And Uchenna Nwosu, strong side linebacker, playing that Sam position. I want to say USC, but for Pete Carroll, but playing that Sam position for the Seattle Seahawks. He'll bring that edge rushing heat. He's going to try to bring it over Mike McGlinchey. And Brock Purdy's going to have a quick release in this game because he's going to have a smart release in this game, because if that pressure from guys like Nwosu comes in without Seattle blitzing, they're going to have 7 in coverage. And there's a reason why Tariq Woolen has been able to notch 6 INTs and why the Seattle defense has generally gotten better over the course of the year. They're definitely better than when they faced the 49ers in week 2, although there has been some recent regression. So Important for Brock Purdy to continue to avoid mistakes and to handle the road noise in the NFL for the first time. It's a whole new variable that we're going to learn about Brock Purdy. You know, everybody wants to anoint Brock Purdy and have all these grand conclusions after just one start, 2 good games at home, but we have to continue collecting data on Brock Purdy. And this big piece of data that's coming up in Seattle is, you know, they have crowd noise there. I don't credit the Seahawks fans for all that much of the higher crowd noise than other places. I credit the stadium's construction, which they've done studies on. They've got this overhang, right, over both sideline stands, right? And the overhang was designed to stop the rain. By the way, no rain in the forecast on Thursday, but it was designed to stop that Seattle rain from hitting the majority of the crowd. And it, by what I understand, it was an accident. They made the overhang parabolic, and you see on the sideline those guys with the parabolic microphones. A parabolic design will encase and capture sound and reverberate sound essentially back down using the parabola, right? So when they designed Seattle's overhang in the stadium, it was by accident, but it was just a design feature for aesthetically, visually pleasing purposes. It was meant to block out the rain, but it's also something that reverberates the sound. So Seattle fans will give themselves a lot of credit. They're like, oh yeah, we're the 12s. I think they stole that from Texas A&M. But they give themselves a lot of credit for being louder than everybody else. But it's really that their stadium's architecture is louder than everybody else. And, they talk about Levi Stadium. Oh, maybe they could put an overhang over Levi Stadium to block out the sun, right? Opposite problem with Seattle. Bay Area gets too much sun. Seattle gets too much rain. But, everybody really toasts on those September afternoon games at Levi's. The problem, that would make Levi's a whole lot louder, right? If they built a parabolic overhang over Levi's, but they can't do that because it's in the landing path of the San Jose airport. So FAA regulations won't allow that to happen. Anyway, long story short, that's my little side story on the Seattle noise. However they generate the noise, right? Parabolic overhang or not, loud fans or not, it's still loud. And Brock Purdy is going to have to handle road noise in the NFL for the first time. And that's going to be a really interesting test for Brock in this game. Back to the 49ers defense. Their edge rushers are better than Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. And you saw that in the matchup. I mean, here, Geno Smith's efficiency speaks for itself. The outlier is the 49ers game down here in the bottom left. And one of the reasons the 49ers game was such an outlier in the negative for Geno Smith is because the 49ers overwhelmed the Seattle offensive line. I don't think that Charles Cross or Abraham Lucas can consistently block Nick Bosa. Geno Smith doesn't have Tom Brady's ability to get rid of the football with superhuman quickness. The 49ers were so frustrated after not getting a sack against the Buccaneers and Tom Brady. I don't think they're going to be frustrated about a lack of sacks in this game, but we shall see. One hidden thing about the Seahawks that could neutralize this game, and there's one more thing about the game itself that could be a neutralizing factor that I'll get to in a bit, but from the Seahawks specifically, this is a Pete Carroll staple. Number 2 special teams DVOA. The Seahawks are number 10 on offense, number 21 on defense, right here. Not good. 49ers can capitalize on that. But number 2 on special teams. And how many times has an inferior Seattle team beaten a better 49ers team because special teams swooped in to provide the winning difference? It happened twice last year. The 49ers were better than the Seahawks in both of those games on offense and defense, but Seattle was better on special teams, and they embarrassed the 49ers in that facet of the game, and they stole a couple wins. I remember fumbled kickoff returns. I remember a fake punt taken for a touchdown untouched when the 49ers did not account for the gunner. I mean, it was, or the up man. It was the up man. It was Travis Homer taking it all the way. It was the up man on that play. I mean, it was bad news. The 49ers had paid too much attention to the gunners, nothing to the up man. It was terrible coaching. Richard Hightower is no longer with the 49ers, probably in large part due to what happened in Seattle. And the 49ers went and hired the Seahawks' former special teams coordinator of about a decade, the guy who initially imprinted this brand of Seattle-style football of great special teams, right? Brian Schneider, 49ers went out and got Schneider, and Schneider has turned their special teams unit around. Over the past 6 weeks, the 49ers rank top 5, number 4 in the NFL in special teams DVOA. But Seattle ranks number 2. So the Seahawks are still in position to do Seahawks-style things on special teams against the 49ers. It is imperative the 49ers don't fumble kicks, don't fumble punts, cover kicks, and are ready for fake punts. And obviously, Robbie Gould needs to continue making his kicks, and Mitch Wishnowsky needs to continue punting well. The Seahawks will capitalize on any of those parts of special teams if you are lacking in one of them, right? That's the Pete Carroll MO, and it's continued even with Brian Schneider, not as their special teams coach. However, Schneider being with the 49ers definitely has presented a boost this year. Remember, the only Seahawks points in week 2 against the 49ers came on special teams, a blocked field goal taken back for a touchdown. I believe that was Ross Dwelly who fell asleep at the switch in that game, who needed to make a little bit of an impediment on the block on the field goal. Obviously didn't. Seahawks took it back the other way. One big stat, I talk about the Seahawks defense being number 21 at DVOA. This is a stat that I came aboard with about a month ago, and I said, hey, the 49ers are probably going to win the NFC West because of this stat. The 2 worst defenses against yards after the catch in the NFL are the Arizona Cardinals, who the 49ers obviously ran out of the building in Mexico City, and the Seattle Seahawks, who have the 2nd worst yak defense in the National Football League. It's the Cardinals giving up over 6 yards after the catch per reception, and Seattle is right there behind them. 5.75 yards per reception on average given up by the Seahawks. So no Deebo Samuel for the 49ers in this game, but they still have a lot of guys that can generate yak. And again, yak is also a quarterback stat. If the QB throws accurately at short range, he will set up yards after the catch. It's very important for Brock Purdy to set up yak for the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey, Jawan Jennings, don't forget about him. George Kittle. The 49ers have guys that can accrue yards after the catch, and that extends all the way to Brandon Ayuk. With accurate throwing, the Seahawks can be exposed, and my prediction that the 49ers will win the NFC West in large part because of terrible NFC West defenses against yak, the Seahawks and the Cardinals. My prediction will come true if the 49ers capitalize on this. So the one thing that could really equalize everything that I just listed, though, is the Thursday game equalizing effect. Thursdays are really tough. The NFL really shouldn't be playing games on Thursday. It's not good for the players. By extension, it's not good for the fans. But they do want a presence on TV on Thursday. I think an easy way around it would be to make sure the teams that play on Thursdays don't play the weekend prior. But maybe that's a little too smart of a solution for this situation. Anyway, the 49ers and the Seahawks both played on Sunday. They both have an extremely quick turnaround, only like 3 days of rest before Thursday. And they're going to be bruised, and it's going to affect trench play. And yes, I get it. It affects both teams. But since it affects both teams, it is a great equalizer. You see defenses, often really strong ones, not look as good on Thursday night as they look on other nights. The 2019 49ers defense is a great example. They're roaring into Halloween night in Arizona, and then they get really carved up, especially down the stretch of that game against the Cardinals. They did win. That was the feels great baby game from Jimmy Garoppolo to Aaron Andrews after. But long story short, you don't know what kind of effect the bruises of a Thursday night game, tired bodies, is going to have on the outcome. The 49ers played in neutral conditions with ample rest, are clearly better than Seattle. We saw that in week 2. But now, I mean, we look at this game and we can go through all the keys that we want, and I just did over the course of the past 20 minutes. But now it's a Thursday night game. Now weird stuff can happen. Now guys are a little bit fatigued. So the NFL is this very precise league where I feel that you can identify matchups and you can identify points of weakness and strength to predict these matchups. But a lot of that goes out the window thanks to Thursday night games. But the truth of the matter is that this one is being played on Thursday night, and the 49ers have to deal with it. So we will see what happens at Lumen Field as the 49ers and the Seahawks go for a throwback, right? they're the NFC West contenders. The Cardinals and the Rams have fallen a long way this season. It's the Seahawks and the 49ers for the NFC West, and the 49ers in the driver's seat right now. A win on Thursday would clinch the division for the 49ers, and it's a huge deal whenever you can do it on your arch rival's turf. All right, if you see me in Seattle, please come up and say hi. Margot and I will be walking around town. We'll be checking out. We're going to go on a little dumpling tour in Seattle. We're going to see a lot of good spots, get some good drinks maybe on Wednesday. And then obviously I will be at the game on Thursday. So if you see me, say hi. It's going to be a fun trip. Quick week. 49ers Bucks on Sunday, 49ers Seahawks on Thursday. Hope you enjoyed the preview. Sub to The Athletic, and obviously sub to the channel. Like the video, do all that good stuff, and enjoy Thursday Night Football. Everybody take care. I am going to go start my day now and head down to the facility. More content from Levi's coming later today.